Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Snap Decisions. I am your host with the most, your nighttime Snap DJ tonight, and I am here with Safety Blade. Safety, welcome to my show. So happy to have you on board. I've known your name from the podcast and from Born to be Cosmo and making all those decks that I see all the time. So welcome in, man. I'm so glad to have you. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Flattered. So I'm excited to have a chat.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. I'm glad to. So I'm going to start where I like to kind of start with all the guests that come on. So obviously, you know, you're a big Marvel Snap player, but a lot of us kind of started in different places. I know I came from Magic from the 90s, and I like to find out. So what's your background in gaming? Where did you start with either, you know, a lot of people with video games or with computer games, card games, whatever. Tell me a little bit about your background with gaming overall.
How far back to go?
I've gone back to like Atari and Intellivision in my days. So it was
I can. Let's go back that far. That's fine. Look, I was a child who was obsessed with video games when I was younger. Particularly PlayStation 1 was the big one.
Yep.
Where I started at my age, and I got a few of the every console from there. Basically, would be what I pestered my parents for. But the PlayStation 1 will have a special place in my heart forever. Actually, I just loved every game, especially the very first game I played was actually just FIFA 96. But I've in my young life, before I have responsibilities and everything, I think I've played every sort of game you can possibly think of, if I'm actually honest. But the PlayStation 1, back in the day, remember the modded? You ever had the modded chips?
Yes.
You ever heard the modded? Yeah.
Yep.
You used to get the mod when you were in England. Back in the you'd get it modded somewhere anyway.
Yep.
And then a guy would come around your house with a booklet. Like we knew this guy. He'd walk around the neighborhood. He'd give you a booklet, and he'd be like, "I'll be back in 2 days. You'd pick what you want, and it'll be £5 a game." So we just take all these games, and I'd be like, "Here's £50. Here's 10 new games." So I played everything. I played everything. I remember like Gran Turismo was a crowd favorite in our house. Like play Gran Turismo against each other and be who stays on. So that continued on for like most of my young life. I actually played like Xbox 360 was where I kind of stopped on the console game. So because life just gets ahead of you. So that's video games. Like video games are actually very. You talk about retro games with me the retro now. To me, they don't feel retro. Them games I can talk about forever, but I don't play video games anymore. Really.
Yeah.
I see Marvel Snap more as a card game. I love card games. Like I just like I've always liked board games. I've always liked card games. I like the way it engages you, the challenges, the thinking about it, the things to explore. That's the sort of thing I really enjoy. The first card game I ever played was like most people my generation was Pokemon.
Yep.
Absolutely obsessed. I didn't just collect them like everybody else. I used to play them when I was a kid, but it just dropped off at one point. Like I moved to Australia. In Australia, card gaming is actually traditional card gaming is harder to maintain. Like we don't have as much access to tournaments, just random shops to go to. I lived in rural Australia. There was nowhere to it just kind of dropped off. And then one day I was playing Overwatch of all things, and it gave me a free card back to Hearthstone, and I found Hearthstone, and that was it.
There you go.
Slowly, every other game I played just stopped because card games and strategy games just they interest me more. The other games I find enjoyable and fun to do, but I prefer the challenge, and that's what I get out of card games.
Nice.
So Hearthstone for years. Battlegrounds, Wild was my favorite game mode until recently when I stopped playing Hearthstone. And Mercenaries was around for a little bit. I was big into that for a little bit. It was when I started my Twitter account. That's how that all started. And then Marvel Snap came along, and I'm a Marvel comic nerd as well. Not as much as you. I've heard your shows. Not as much as you, but I do read them still to this day. I keep up with certain storylines. I enjoy it. I love the artwork. I've always enjoyed it.
Yes.
Got a massive collection out there too, which unfortunately I'm not in that room today.
Yep.
To show you my signed Stan Lee picture or anything like that.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I really enjoy Marvel, and I really enjoy card games. So Marvel Snap came out, and that was it. That was the whole motivation. Wasn't planning on doing any of this, and it turned out I was okay at the game, and had some opinions were able to help others, and then Snap Zone came along, and the rest is history. Now it's been a year and a bit.
That's right. Yeah, you write articles for Snap Zone, yes?
Yep.
That's great. That's awesome. So, have you been playing since beta?
Yes, I got in the last week of the first beta season, so I do not have the Hulk avatar. And
yes.
The only reason I know that is the only thing I don't have is because that frustrated me forever. Because everyone I would face for a very long time had the Hulk avatar, so that hit me. That's the one thing I don't own. But since then it's been infinite every season from there, and I had multiple accounts at one point. So I've done a lot in this game, I think, but.
Yeah, that's amazing.
There's always more.
That's really that's really cool. I know you're not the first person I've heard that has come from Hearthstone. I found out about Hearthstone because I was a big World of Warcraft player. So I was playing WoW for the longest time, and I played a lot of Blizzard's games overall. So World of Warcraft, Diablo, I was a big Diablo player too.
Love Diablo.
Yeah, so I got into it because of that, and I played it for a little while. I was never that good at it though, and I really didn't know why. Because I was just not good at the game. I don't know what it was. Probably just because I didn't spend enough time maybe playing it. Because I consider myself a pretty good Magic player back in the day. I mean, I never won any kind of huge tournaments, but I was a pretty decent player. But then, like yourself, I mean, obviously. Big comic book fan, more Marvel than DC, although I read both. And actually I've read other crazy books outside of both of them too, when Image had their stuff going on and Dark Horse had things going on. And so, but yeah, a similar kind of path, because I was attracted to, as soon as I saw Marvel Snap come up, and I think I think it was because I saw it on my phone, popped up as an ad. I didn't get in on beta. I got in right at the beginning. But what drew me to that was, and I've told this story to some others as well, but there was a Marvel game called Battle Lines. That was a card game.
Oh yeah.
And it was, I mean, it sucked me in because it came out right around the time of Endgame and Infinity War and stuff like that. So they were really capitalizing on the MCU. And I mean, I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed it enough to spend more money than I should have on it. And then it died after like a year. And I'm like, it came up on when Black Panther was being released, and they were talking about this we've got this big Black Panther release coming out, and they were showing all this stuff, and everybody's getting all hyped up. And then about 2 days later, it's like, we're canceling this game. I'm like, oh my God. It was out for you. Really, I mean, a lot of people complain sometimes about this game being, they're too money oriented. It's a money grab, blah, blah, blah. They don't know what the Battle Lines was, a money grab. You couldn't win unless you spent money in that game. You just couldn't. You couldn't keep up. And so, but I kind of enjoyed it. It was a weird, like a hybrid almost between, like the lines were almost kind of reminded you of like tic-tac-toe in a way, where you had to just put all the characters in certain lines to win. I don't remember as much about it now. But as soon as I saw Snap, I kind of got drawn in, and I'm like, okay, this kind of seems like a cool thing. Cause like you, with myself, I'm very similar in the fact that video games were a big part of my life too. The part about me was I'd get hooked into stories. So I played a lot of RPGs, a lot. And in fact, I have Final Fantasy Rebirth sitting in there that I know there's no way I'm going to be able to spend 120 plus hours that you have to spend on that game to beat it. But yes, I get drawn into these things. And it's like, but I just can't. I don't have the time anymore. And I
Mhm.
mean, I wish I did. And then when I saw Snap, I'm like, okay, they're talking, they're 3-minute, 4-minute games.
Mhm.
And I'm like, all right, I'm in, because it just seemed like a thing. And then, yeah. So it's interesting to hear that we have. I want to hear about the Stan Lee thing, man. Did you actually meet Stan?
I did in Adelaide.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
It was only a month or two before he died. It was his last trip to Australia.
Wow.
And,
Okay.
there was our version of Comic Con, something called Supernova.
Yep.
He came down. It was a one. I had to travel to get to it. I had to buy a special ticket to be able to make sure you got this signature. Limited edition prints and stuff, and it's a prized possession out there.
Yeah.
Got the limited edition pop doll with it too, and I only met him like it was literally. I think they asked me about this last week when I was talking to someone else about it. But there's no crazy story about it. It was that starstruck. It was just like, hi. So
yes.
There's no I said this really smart, amazing thing or anything cool. I said hi.
That's usually how it goes, doesn't it? It's like whenever you meet. I've been to 2 bigger conventions. I've been to New York Comic Con once. Stan Lee was about maybe 2 or 3 feet away from me. I could see him because I'm tall, but there was a huge crowd around him. So we had so many other things that we were supposed to do. Now I kind of regret I should have just stayed in the line and just fought my way up to the front. But I saw him there. And then a friend of mine got to meet Mark Hamill. She's a big Star Wars fan. So she got to meet Mark Hamill. And when she went up for the autograph, I walked up with her and he gave her a big hug, and it was all like, but it's very, very similar. Like when you meet someone like that, for me, I'm also a big horror nerd along with comic books and stuff like that. I like horror films. I'm a big Friday the 13th fan. I got to meet Kane Hodder, one of the guys who played Jason for more than one movie. And when I went up to him, it was the same way. You go up and you're thinking, I'm going to be all cool and walk up to him and be like, yo, what's up, man? How are you? And then you go up and you're just like, hey.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100%. I could totally see that. That's a great moment though. At least you got to meet him. I have an animated cell from the Spider-Man. In fact, I'm looking at it. The 90s animated series that he signed.
Oh, yeah.
And I have a picture of him when he signed them, and I have it framed. A friend of mine got it for me. And I have it up on my wall, and it's one of the coolest things that I've had done.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. But that's cool you got to meet him though. I bet you he always seemed to me like a sweetheart of a guy, like very, very nice guy. And he came off that way. But yeah, that's awesome that you got to meet him. I'm a little jealous.
Because there's a few seconds of my life, but it's definitely Marvel Comics and the stories what come out of it, and the way that people use the medium really impacted how I know me throughout my life. So it was nice.
Favorite comic book? I gotta ask you.
Oh, it's actually not a Marvel one though, so that's
okay. That's okay. That's all right. We talked about. Hey, listen, I was talking about. I think 2 guests ago, I was talking about the Max comic book that they made into a cartoon from this. So it's perfectly okay, man. Doesn't need to be.
No. So Marvel would be my favorite IP. Like definitely as an overall. Like Marvel comics and superhero, their superhero world, I think to me is just significantly better than the other superhero world in DC. But comic wise, it would be Saga. Which is a comic series. It's a newer one. And it's by I don't know. I'm not very good at remembering studios, but it's really, really, really good. Anyone who's looking for an interesting comic to read.
Is that
Brian K. Vaughan? Brian K. Vaughan wrote it.
Is that Image? Is it an Image?
It might be Image. Yeah, I believe so. It's one of
okay,
ones.
I've seen it. Yeah,
I've got the whole collection outside of that one. I love that story. It's incredible. Really well written. Really touches on people and life, and that's what I like about comic medium, which sometimes missed. Marvel comics I like for the fun of it.
Yes,
like it's a bit wacky. Some of the stories are deep, but not too deep, and they look cool. It's just cool out. The other comics, the comics I really enjoy, are ones which delve into something. and use the picture medium to do something else as well, and really question and query stuff about like. And Saga does that. It's an amazing book. Sweet Tooth is another one, which is a TV show now as well on Netflix. The book is significantly better.
So they usually are.
That's another good one. The classic, my long-time favorite, was Watchmen.
Oh, Watchmen was fantastic. Yes, I
the
read
Watchmen. The original has to be the original. I read the recent spin-offy sort of tie-in with the DC story one, which was okay. It was okay. I don't think it added much. The original story though is incredible. It's one of the best. That's one of the best books I've ever read. Never mind. Like, that's not even compared to comics. And you're looking at like more traditional superhero series. It's Spawn. Spawn's my favorite series.
Oh, right. That's 2 weeks in a row. I had someone talk about Spawn. Okay.
Spawn's the first real. For me, it was like the first really well done anti-hero, like sort of full series. Like he was the way that they questioned. He wrote. I know that Todd only wrote it because it looks cool, but reality is that the question of good versus bad was just brilliantly balanced in Spawn. But the whole way through, all the way to the end, is the original run. I know I don't read any of it anymore, any of the new stuff. I know they still do stuff with the Spawn character, but I have a model of the third comic, the cover model, a statue. I have a statue version of that.
That's awesome.
Outside of it. But Spawn's great. Spawn was an amazing character. The way that was written was really good,
Yeah, I didn't start collecting Spawn right off the bat when it came out, and then once I got in around, I want to say issue 5 or 6.
Around when Angela came out.
Yes, right around there. Yeah. People don't realize that we were just I think I was talking about that with Nerf Herder a little bit, because people don't realize that she wasn't initially a Marvel character. That she was in Spawn. But it sucked that I missed out on the first couple too, because by the time I did, that was in like the early 90s, around that time when I started. That was when I kind of started reading comics again. I went away from it a little bit when I was in college, and then but that issue, so the number 1 issue, got to be so popular and so expensive you couldn't get it. The friend of mine that owned the bookstore, a comic book store, he couldn't even get his hands on any of them. They were hundreds of dollars to get a hold of an issue 1, until they started reprinting them. Then once the reprints came out, then it wasn't so bad. But it was like almost any other book in the 90s. The 90s was a very weird time for comics, because it was around when they had the death of Superman. You had the whole breaking of the bat thing with Batman, with Bruce Wayne getting his back broken by Bane, and then you had Venom out from Todd McFarlane, and all that kind of stuff. It was a weird time for comics, because these issues would blow up in price because everybody wanted to get a hold of them, and now you can get those books for a quarter. They're so cheap because there are so many of them made. And crazy foil covers and holograms and all this kind of stuff. It was a very weird era for comic books, both of them. But I love Spawn. What did you think of have you seen the film? Did you see the movie?
I have seen the film. I have a cell of the film outside.
Okay. Nice.
I have a clipping of the cell of the film.
Nice.
The film is my favorite bad movie.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
I love it.
That's a good way of putting it.
That movie. It's terrible, but I love it. The TV show, the cartoon, the HBO cartoon is much, much better.
The animated one, yes, I agree.
Yes, that is much better. But Michael J. White is another personal favorite of mine.
Okay.
I like him. I met him properly though. I actually had a conversation with him. I had a Comic Con that I went to. He also did a movie called Black Dynamite. I have a signed picture of him playing Black Dynamite. You should look. Anyone should look up that movie.
I will have to look up that movie.
R18 on that one. But Michael J. White, the guy who played Spawn, I love him. He should have always played Blade, and he plays Blade in the Midnight Suns game.
That's right. Yes,
he should have played Blade. He should have played
reading
Blade.
About that. Yeah.
It's a shame because he would have been a perfect Blade. But anyway.
Well, that's if they ever get that made. Period. I mean, they've been talking about that for years now. That's what it's like. I mean, is this thing ever coming out? I mean, we have an actor. We have a. It has to eventually come out. There's two
there's two bigger, like the original Blade Trinity movies are another one of my favorite bad movies. The way I would describe that too. Blade Trinity in itself, that's a terrible movie, but it's so good.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I can recite it almost.
They got worse as they went along.
Almost like the line.
Yeah, the first one was good, and the second one was okay. And then the third one was just bad. It was just bad. But I don't know. There are rumors now that they're saying they're going to do something with the Midnight Suns, and that's how they're going to bring them all together. So they're Moon Knight and Blade
I think
Ghost Rider.
Will.
Yeah.
That side of Marvel's got the deeper character stories for me. That's something else I always like that side of like the Marvel Knights, they call it now, don't they? Like that side of Marvel's. Always, I love that. Recently, Elsa Bloodstone herself has been my favorite one to go reading her stories.
Yes,
because they're quirky and they're trying to add depth to her. But like Moon Knight's an incredible character. Like his books are incredible.
Yes, agreed.
They're really deep stories and really question stuff as well. So they live within the Marvel universe, but they take a slightly different direction. So I do think that they will push that side of the MCU further because like the audience is getting older. That's kind of the problem with the MCU right now. Like it hasn't evolved with the audience.
Yes.
It's leaving the audience behind.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. Yeah, I think you're right. I think they will. It seems as if now that they're adopting the Netflix characters and they made them canon, I think that they're going to go in that direction, and they're already saying they're going to supposedly the Echo series. I don't know if you saw Echo.
I've got 2 episodes left of it. And I have to finish it quickly because that was pretty good. I enjoyed it. But they're kind of saying that supposedly they may ground Spider-Man a little bit and bring him back to the New York streets, not make him such a part of the Avengers and things like that, and he could end up with Daredevil, with Punisher, with Jessica, with all of them at some point, along with some of the other ones that were based in New York too, which Moon Knight technically was as well. And so was Blade. So they could end up just kind of mixing them all together a little bit. I don't know, but yeah, I agree with you. I think that, I think they do have to realize they have a bit of an older audience now, especially ones that have been with them for 20 years. So yeah, you do have to change things, I think, up a little bit. They kind of got away from that, and the movies haven't been great, and so I'm looking forward to Deadpool. I'm sure Deadpool will be hilarious. Look,
so
I still enjoyed like every single one of these movies where everyone I enjoyed them still. Like I watch them for what they are. But I do think for me it comes down to the problem that people think that the people who are watching are getting older and the stories aren't getting older. They're still made for preteens. Some of them. And unfortunately they're not appealing to them either. So Captain Marvel is a great example. It's a fun movie, it's fun, but it's really for preteens to watch. And like they don't care. They don't care anymore. None of them care about Captain Marvel, which is a problem. Right. So they're not going to watch it, and then the people who are watching it just complain about it because they feel like it's not for them. It wasn't made for them. It wasn't written for them, and they're not getting a new audience. So I don't know what they're going to do. Fantastic Four, I think, will help because that's a big property.
I am really excited about that. Fantastic Four was a big book for me. There were two books offside of Spider-Man that I read a lot when I was a kid: Fantastic Four and Doctor Strange. Both from a very young age, and I love both of them. So yeah, Fantastic Four, I'm super excited about. The cast seems phenomenal, and the fact that Galactus is going to be in it and he's not going to be a cloud makes me very happy.
I am interested how they deal with Galactus. Are they going to do he can turn like he's actually 7 foot, or what size they're going to put him, or he's going to be world-ending size the whole time? Because isn't he realistically? He's actually only 15 foot, isn't he? Doesn't he change size? So they can do something with it. Yeah,
it's almost like he could change to human form, because obviously he's not like otherwise he would have to be like, in a comparison to a movie, he would almost have to be like Unicron in Transformers, where you would see him coming, but he's like his own planet size. But then in the comics, Yeah, in the comics in the past, you would see the Fantastic Four fight him, and if he was in the middle of like a New York street, yes, he'd be towering, but he's not.
Yeah.
He's obviously walking on the planet, so he's not that
Yes, he was.
big. Yeah,
He used the
yeah.
ship. He traditionally uses the ship to actually eat planets, not himself.
Yep.
The world ship. So, like, there's lots they can do. I really hope they explore the character properly from the start. Like, I really like the Ultimates run. That was one of my favorite newer runs. The Ultimates run with him, where they made him the life bringer.
Yeah,
like, that really explored the character like so much more than like most stories do. They usually just use him as a big guy, don't they? And he dies and But there's actually so much depth to his character that being there at the start of the universe, sort of thing. It's like such a wild backstory. But Fantastic Four and the Xmen, obviously, there's some big properties for them to explore, which will help. I think that's the other problem. Like, the properties they're exploring are not as popular.
Yeah.
So, like, as much as comic book readers might know them, and then because they're not as popular, they're not drawing as big an audience, and so Fantastic Four will help. Doctor Doom really needs to be done quick, as soon as possible for me.
Oh my gosh, let's get away from the well, let's see. You had the the first one. I mean, he was okay, but basically he was just like a metal guy. He wasn't really anything with. And then when he rode the surfboard in part 2, I was like, all right, this is kind of ridiculous. Then you had the newest one where he was more like he was just exploding people's heads. He's just going around and blowing people's heads up. I'm like, this is not Doctor Doom. They never got him right, and I don't understand it. It's like probably one of the easiest characters you don't even need a lot of CGI. He wears armor, so it's not that hard to do. But I agree. They need to do him justice.
One of the problems that they have in these movies is they only have so many characters to explore. So Doctor Doom's a really he's like iconic. He's got a real rich background. He's had history with everybody. He's got reasons that he's doing things which are more complicated, and they just don't get enough time to explore the characters properly. With characters like him, and to actually get you invested in him as a bad guy. I think that's why Kingpin's so popular in the Netflix ones, because he was like 3 seasons of building him up as alongside Daredevil. So everyone, you know him as a character. You understand his motivations better, and it's hard. It's really hard. It's really hard to translate a full story into movies, and
it is.
They were doing a decent job of it for some time, but now they seem to be rushing characters in just to try and have more things to make, and it comes across like Ironheart in the latest Black Panther. Was so forced.
She
That doesn't work for me. You forced the story in, and I'm like. Could have just explored the story more. So I don't know. Like, aside from games, like, I'm really invested in stories too. You might tell. I used to like RPGs too, because I get really I think about them far too much. My wife gets annoyed at me. Like 3 days later, I'll be like, oh, maybe this was the thing, what they were doing with that thing, and she's like, I don't care anymore.
We're past that. Go on, move on. Yeah, mine be the same way. But you're right. I think. So many of these films, and the really, really good ones, the villains make the film. And if you don't get that, if you don't knock that villain out of the park, you are not going to have a successful movie, series, whatever the case might be. That's how it is. And so those villains, but you're right. See, what they should have even done, and now I know they're kind of going away from the Disney Plus series and stuff, which is fine. They were overloading people with content, and a lot of them weren't that good anyway. But if you're going to do a series, do a series about the backstory of the villain. So take, like you were saying, do a Doctor Doom 6-episode series and give him an origin story and go through that little origin story before he gets it, or have him get the little introduction in the Fantastic Four, maybe at the very end, and then go into a Doom series. Now they're kind of saying that they maybe will, because they have Armor Wars that's coming out, and they're thinking maybe they might incorporate Doom into that somehow, which would probably be okay. But like I said, you have to knock the villain out of the park. If you don't, the movies are going to be bad. I mean, just go back to the very beginning of the MCU, and you had the first Iron Man. Good film. The second one, Whiplash wasn't very good. And then you go to the third one. Yeah. Then you go to the third one, and the fake Mandarin and all that kind of
Oh, I
stuff was,
hate that.
oh, it was awful. And so they
I
got
really hate
progressively worse, and it's
that.
because the villains aren't great. The same with
Yes.
Thor. The first
Yep.
Thor you had Destroyer, and then the second Thor you had the Dark Elves, which was bad, and it's just like they got worse because the villains aren't great. You
Yeah.
have to have good villains, or you're not good. The movies just aren't going to succeed.
Well, it's the same. Like I used to always say to people, the reason Batman's so good is not
it's
Batman.
Rogues Gallery.
It's all the bad guys.
Yeah.
The Batman comic and the Batman stories are based that they're bad guys are some of the best in all comics. Like they're just incredible. Every single one of them almost.
Yep.
They've got layers to them. There's reasons behind everything to do. Even the Joker, like the Joker's obviously the bad guys at this point.
Yep.
And Spider-Man, the Spider-Man character himself actually doesn't interest me very much, but his villains
are tremendous. Yep.
Are actually incredible, and they're all great. And they have real stories to them, and it makes a huge difference. Like, it does make a really big difference. And like the latest Marvel movies are just rushing bad guys out. They're missing, like, I still don't understand why they haven't done a 4 movie with Enchantress as a bad guy.
Yes.
Obviously, maybe they're saving it for something, but and Gore, I'm actually.
Oh, that was awful. What an awful rendition of a cool. That character's so cool in the books.
The thing about the Gore one, the Gore wasn't terrible. It just was. There's so much more that they could have done. That comic was great. Like, that's an incredible book. Like, that's like a Marvel sort of like Joker level bad guy.
Yes.
And you had him in for like 5 minutes of a movie.
Yep.
And 5 minutes he's in it, great, but you just didn't do it. I don't understand what you did here. You missed a shot there, guys.
Yeah. They really did.
Gore the God Butcher that's got to be the most. Like, even though it's not the worst rendition in the MCU, it's the one that will annoy me the most because that had the most potential out of all of them to do something different. But and it's one of the only, like, Thor's one of them heroes without good bad guys, in my opinion. Like, I don't actually really like
it's hard to give him a bad guy because he's a god. It's very difficult to do. Like, even in a lot of his comics back in the day, there weren't. A lot of times he fought other gods, or he fought, Beta Ray Bill obviously was a villain at the beginning, and he had Mangog, I think Mangog was one of his villains, but they're all these big, like, Mangog looked like an old Minotaur type creature from that. So I guess they might have had issues figuring out, well, who's going to beat a god, but that's what I like about what they did with Thanos, because they bring Thanos in and Thanos just pounds him. Like, he just beats up Thor like it's nothing, nobody's business. Same thing with Hulk. And when I saw that, but again, they introduced him proper. They waited for a good long time. He was in the little teasers after the credits and stuff like that. But they waited for it. And now, well, let me ask you, have you read Infinity Gauntlet and Infinity War? The comics? Okay.
Yes, I have a full read print outside of that one. Yes,
okay.
I do.
So I've got to ask you, what did you think of the fact that they left out Death?
Look, it makes sense. I think it was too soon for them to go crazy cosmic. Like the grandness of the Infinity Gauntlet, the story in the comics is like, the scale's ridiculous. Like, Eternity's there, like Mephisto. Like, it's like 90s acid trip stuff. I don't think they were ready to. I don't think they were ready to do that. I actually, I like the direction they went with it. Overall. I don't think they were ready to introduce characters like Death. I still don't think they're ready to do it now, even though they started trying to do the gods of Moon Knight and stuff. Like, I don't. That it comes across much better in the comic, that one.
Yes.
And obviously at the time, as you'll know better than me, like, all them stories led into it as well. Like, there's so much more to achieve that in a book. A lot more background to it. So I understand why they left Death out. But to be honest, it does it leaves a hole. It left a little bit of a hole on why he was doing it.
The motivation.
Death's his motivation the whole way through. Like, I read about a year ago, I read the Thanos Wins story and Cosmic Ghost Rider afterwards, which is incredible.
Cosmic Ghost Rider is phenomenal.
Yeah, and even that Thanos wins story and the Cosmic Ghost Rider story is all based around the fact that he's still pining over death, even though he's the last one, and that like is still the motivation there the whole way through is his death. And that missing link was clear if you read the book, but outside of that, it made sense. They just didn't give him a good enough reason for why he was doing it. Sometimes, maybe.
I agree. I think it would have been I think hard to translate that on film, and especially for people who weren't necessarily comic book readers. So imagine like younger kids going to see it and thinking like, okay, he's got this visage of a ghost next to him, and why does he why is he listening to her if he's this big powerful guy and all this other guy? So I get it. It would have probably been a little hard to translate on screen. The fact that she was motivating, but I did miss it especially for reading the book. I definitely missed it. Like you were saying, I think there's a little bit of a hole in the thing there as to why. He wanted power, but that wasn't really all of his motivation. It wasn't. He wanted to make everything right. He felt that he was a martyr, not a bad guy. So I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay. At least like they cover it with the. He was doing it to help everyone else live, sort of thing.
Yes, yeah.
But and it made you care about the character. Thanos is an incredibly well written character over the years, and they still seem to knock him out of the park in the books, in my opinion. Like he's still doing really well. But there's some of the other Eternal Jason stuff doesn't do as well for me. So, I'm not as big a fan of some of the other Eternal Jason stuff.
Supposedly Thanos is coming back. Apparently, the actor who plays him, his name escapes me now, but he said that they've asked him to come back. So I'm guessing it's got to be for Secret War, where he was actually a good guy. He helped them in Secret War, I remember, against Doom. So that must be when he's coming back
in the latest series, because I love the reboot series was incredible.
Yep.
And it does reboots the universe a little bit, doesn't it? So
yes, it does.
That's what everyone keeps talking about. I know I've heard them rumors. But the Thanos, Mr. Sinister in that was great. Mr. Sinister is great in that. Apocalypse in that was amazing too. That book is a good 6. There's just the main 6 issues.
Yep.
Highly recommend to anyone who wants to read.
No doubt.
That Doom, it makes me want to buy the Doom Throne in Snap.
Yes.
I haven't bought that one because I have other good Dooms. But
you're talking about the Alex Ross one, the white Doom?
Yeah, the Alex Ross one. Yeah, it's the cover. It's issue 2, that isn't it? I think it's issue 2 of Secret War.
Yeah, that's such a good. They
really explored the Doom's motivations, that one again as well. Like that book's about Doom, isn't it? It comes back to that same, like if the bad guy is good and it's well written, it makes such a big difference.
Yeah, agreed. And they showed the scene in the Deadpool trailer, I guess, where one of those books was laying on the ground, where he passed out on the ground when he was fighting. So the issue of Secret War, they closed up on it, was laying next to him in the sand at some point. So that's got to be more than just a little teaser that they put there. So I kind of think that they're probably going to do that. And they're saying that, I guess, Fantastic Four is going to be a period piece taking place in the 60s. And then Doom they were saying, should be at the end of that, or it maybe, who knows, maybe a post-credit scene or something like that. So
I'm thinking that 60s thing, do you think they're going to, like the one thing, what's your opinion on this? Do you think they'll do the Fantastic Four from a different universe and they come across the main one, like an incursion starts happening and they come across that way? Or do you think it's going to be like the Blue Marvel Sentry retcon, where they kind of wipe everyone's memory of them existing? Because they did that with Sentry, didn't they? That's the backstory for Sentry. And Blue Marvel went into hiding, wasn't he? And he was black superhero, so no one talked about him. It was his one. So I don't know, like maybe they'll do something like that and they were always there, but they were in retirement, sort of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Or incursion. It's going to be one of the two. And whether they do the Thinker, was it the Thinker? The other Reed Richards. Do you think they'll do him? The Ultimate Universe one?
Yeah, and the part of the name? Oh gosh, the guy that played was in The Office.
It's like the best bad guy. No,
yes.
in the maker.
Oh, the make. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's incredible. He was like the only good thing about the Ultimate Universe for such a long time. Whether they'll do the Maker, I hope they do the Maker at some point.
I kind of like the Professor X in the Ultimate Universe when he's the one that wore the helmet, right? They had the helmet over
Cerebra.
Yes,
Yeah, they do that in the main universe now as well. Before
is he in the okay?
I haven't.
Okay.
So I haven't. Fall of X is what I'm up to at the moment. I haven't read past the Hellfire Gala yet with Fall of X, so I've got to read that. So I don't know what happens, but yeah, he's got the helmet on in the main universe.
Okay.
So Captain Krakoa was introduced where I was up to. So I'll see what happens
there. All right. Well, man, we geeked out for almost an hour about comic books, which is awesome. But I guess we should talk some Snap here. So what I want to cover with you is I figured we would talk about a little bit about the OTA. So the patch that came out, obviously, that we were expecting to come out, the balance update. So just some thoughts from you as to what you thought from this. I guess we'll start from left to right. We'll go to top to bottom on the poster there. That's by Nina, by the way. Nina does a fantastic job with this. She does one every month, and she does amazing work with that. So we'll start with Forge. Forge went from a 1/1 obviously to a 2/2. Same, does the same exact thing. What did you think of the Forge change? Obviously, it might hurt Destroy a little bit, obviously, in the way that they play. A lot of times you get that number, first turn Forge and Deadpool and stuff. But other than that, I mean, do you see Forge being the change being a big deal?
Yes, I do. This is huge.
Okay.
This is one, so when I look at balance changes, obviously Snap Zone, but one of the things we do is look at these things and try and work out what we're going to do with the cards afterwards. But the way to look at a 1 to 2 is it's 100% increase in cost. Like, it's a significant change. It's like it's almost probably the biggest adjustment on the screen here to me is the Forge, because it changes when you can play. Like, when you can play Forge on 1 and for 1 energy in any turn, it was such a big deal. Now you've got to play, if you want to use Forge to do a Deadpool thing, you've got to do Forge on 2, you've got to do Deadpool on 3, you've got to destroy it. It has to be exactly with Carnage. Like, it's becoming very, like, the pieces have to fall too well together. So Destroy itself survives, in my opinion, because what you do is you play Forge anyway, because it's still good, like, it can still do stuff, or you play Hulkbuster and you go Deadpool Hulkbuster and do it that way. So it doesn't really hurt Destroy as much as it might seem, but the card itself is so much less playable. Like, I loved playing this card, anything but Destroy. Like, bounce decks, my Loki decks had them in it. Like, I had it in so many decks. I had it in my Cull Obsidian deck just to play him and let Cull Obsidian play in the lane and I'd buff another lane. I think they destroyed this card. It's back to being quite narrow. When Forge was 2 cost for such a long time, like, granted he had 1 power, which is another significant change, but at 2 he was very hard to fit into anything. Like, it was awkward. You would try and do long stuff and it would never work because you'd have to have 2 energy still. Sparing 1 energy versus sparing 2, it's a gigantic difference. Like, this card is significantly worse. That makes sense when you look at it that way.
I'll ask you a quick question about Destroy, right? So a lot of people talk about Destroy. I know I've had my own frustrations with it, and the fact that there are so many locations out there that help it, so many. And it just seems like every time I play a Destroy player, they get one. And I know that a lot of them are the more common ones and things like that. But what do you think? What do you think about Destroy? A lot of people say it's good for the meta when Destroy is good. I've heard other creators have said that and things like that overall. But I mean, overall, what do you think about the deck? And now obviously it gets maybe a little bit worse, but to me, it kind of seems, are they skating around what maybe some of the issues are with that? I know there was a rumored balance change for Venom, which didn't end up happening. So what do you make of Destroy overall as a deck, as an archetype?
I just don't think it'll ever not be strong. So way I like to explain like why I think Destroy is actually good is location agnostic. I think that's the right word. It's a big word I would normally use. But locations don't impact it as much as other decks. Yes. That is very important. That's one of the reasons it will always be significantly stronger. And also, destroying cards gives you more space. Yep. So the way I see space in Marvel Snap is it's a resource. I've got this many spots on a board to use, and I have to use them properly. Destroy kind of gets rid of that mistake. So if you play cards in the wrong spot, you can destroy them. You can make space again, and as you get better at the deck, like that becomes more. Like you can do more with that, and it's also very easy to play. Some people will say it's not. It's actually quite easy to play. Discard is significantly harder. For example, if you're looking at the two, if you look at discard and destroy as the two like basic archetypes, discard is significantly harder to play than destroy. But it might not seem that way when you're playing against both of them. They both look the same to you, but destroy is quite easy to play. You just put cards in a lane, you destroy them. They cycle power for you themselves. They add power to null themselves. But the hardest decision is making sure that you do the turn 5 correctly so that you can play your turn 6 correctly. So that's really why it's good. It's not that it's not just that the locations help it, which they do. I actually do agree with that. Like it is impacted by locations less than other decks, but that is simple to play, easy to anyone pick up, and it allows you to make more mistakes than some other decks do, which allows you to therefore just have a higher general win rate, which keeps you playing it because you're winning. But the power. Like people go, "Oh, the null was gigantic." It doesn't matter how big the null was. Like you either lose that lane or you don't lose that lane. So I don't worry about the scaling that they can do that much. It's just that they can quite easily move power around. You're not punished for your mistakes as often, and it doesn't care about locations as much. Which locations in Marvel Snap, not caring about locations is just a huge skill to have in a deck. Like a huge plus for
it. Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, I ran into it a little bit today. I've been playing in an eyeless deck, and if you come across destroy, you're kind of in trouble because they're going to get rid of all the stuff you're bound. If you're putting stuff over there, you're sticking goblins on lanes and all that stuff. They're just going to eat them. They're going to have a carnage there that's going to get rid of it or something along those lines. So it's a little bit of a tougher matchup sometimes. But no, you're right. And I don't know if necessarily I've ever heard somebody talk about the, like you said, how locations matter so much, or the space, how you had said the space on locations matters so much, which you're 100% right. I don't think necessarily I've ever thought about it that way, but you're right. You only have a limited amount of space that you can play cards. So absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like, so yes, I don't like, I do agree. Locations impact destroy less than others, but I don't think that's why it's good. I think it's the reason it's good is simple enough to play. It does the thing very often and consistently because all the cards do the same thing. They all go towards the same strategy, and it'll always be somewhat good because it defeats some of the restrictions of Marvel Snap. Now, some people say it's good for the meta. I am not. I don't know of any deck if it gets to 50%, for example, would ever be good for the meta. But I do understand where people are coming from with that comment. Like it's overpower. They can go way too tall on some lanes, but it's playing the same game as Marvel Snap as other decks. So the way how do I describe this? Basically, some decks play the same game, and if they're playing the same game, you can at least be playing that game against them. So Hela was an opposite. I don't like Hela. Never have.
I do not like Hela either.
Hela and Lockjaw have long been on my hate list. We'll talk about that. But because they're not playing the same game you are. Like they're playing a different game. And that makes destroy being good just means all right, I just got to work out how I beat. They played Venom over there. Can I counter that? Can I not? Or how do I beat the other lanes? Can I beat them? No, I can't. I leave. So as you get higher up the ladder, destroy impacts you less because it's usually quite clear what's going on. I take 4 and 8 cubes off destroy players more than I do any others. And the people who will make them commentaries about destroy being good for the meta are probably the same people who do the same thing. And take 4 and 8 cubes off destroy players a lot because they can see the lines happening and where they're going, and they've got so it makes it easier to play against.
Adam Warlock 5-4 now instead of a 2-0. I really don't think I still think the card's trash, and I really don't know who was going to play that anyway. At a 5, I mean, what were they thinking? The only thing I could think of here is ramp. But even in ramp, who wants this card? Like, are you gonna, I'm gonna wave into an Adam Warlock That is so yeah, it's
No,
just trash, and it's a good. He's such a good. I mean, from reading the comics, Adam
I do.
Warlock's amazing in the comic books. He's like one of the coolest characters in comics, and he's a laughing stock in this game.
Well, what they're doing is they're trying to stay true to the MCU, where he's an absolutely terrible character too.
Yeah, he's a goofball. Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, Adam Warlock was a goofball in Guardians. Yeah, you're right.
They've shown with the power couples thing that they're following the MCU more than they are the comics anyway. So this is actually this is lore accurate. He's a terrible character and a terrible card. No. Seriously, the best part about this change is just I'm obviously very connected to Twitter, X, what you want to call it.
X, yes, whatever it is.
I'm very connected to that. I write more than I do any other sort of content, so that is actually a big part of what I do. So yeah, that's been the favorite part of this change, watching the memes. That's what this change was good for. I just got to. Can we pause for 1 second? I've got a response to something.
Yeah. Yep. Give me a second.
So yeah, out of Warlock, the one thing I will say is positive. I haven't actually tried this card since the change.
Yeah, no, I haven't either.
It's actually very dislike me. I usually try like every card after changes, but this balance change left me thinking I didn't actually want to make the change, try the changes this time. I didn't try this one yet, so maybe there's something here, but I'll talk about it in a second.
And good. Okay. Yeah. So Adam Warlock, not great.
Yeah, no, there's definitely more of a meme. There are some things I want to try with it. Potentially with next week's cards. Question mark. Don't think it's going to be very good, but I'm going to try it. I eventually try every card. It's a bit of a problem that I have. But I wouldn't recommend. I don't understand what's going on here. I don't get how this is supposed to be a better change.
Yeah, I didn't really see it either. All right, America Chavez. I mean, I guess it's okay. It's never going to be what everybody wants her to be and what it used to be. So I don't know. I guess this might work in bounce now. Maybe. Will they even want it in there again? I'm not sure. It's one of those. Yeah, I guess it's all right, but I'm not seeing that big of a deal in this card. What about you?
Look, it's the effect. The effect isn't a valuable effect. That's the problem this card has. Like it's definitely much better at 1/2 than 2/3. Because same as with Forge, like you want to get that out early. You want to be able to fit it in. But this one, unlike Forge, relies on your next card being the card you want.
Yep.
And you actually have to spend the energy on the card you get. So you can't just throw it in any deck. Like if you play it on one, you have to want to play the next card you draw. You have to want to hit that, like to get the actual benefit, or it's just a 1/2. So it's much, much better at this stat line, but I found it to be just not that great in practice because the effect is just not that great. It's just be brilliant lower series 1 or 2. I could make a lot of decks where I'd want to play Chavez. So that's a good thing. I do get that they've got to appeal to different parts of the player base. I'm sure if I was starting again, I would play Chavez in a lot of decks. But later on, she's easily outclassed, unfortunately.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm going to skip over Lockjaw. I'm going to hold him to the end, but let's go to Swordmaster. So Swordmaster goes to a 3/7. I mean, a good stat line, I guess, when you have Maximus at a 3/6. The question is it going to fit in traditional discard, which is, primarily where you've seen him. I don't know. I would say it's the stat line of it seems like it's a pretty decent card, but I don't know if there's other cards in there now that would take his spot. Obviously they're playing Corvus maybe, or so. I mean, what do you think of the change to Swordmaster?
I think he fills a spot. So like if you see a discard deck now, which you've got Corvus in a discard deck, just a normal discard deck, you could easily just put Swordmaster there instead and you'd still have a very functional deck. So it does the thing, it does what it says on the tin, and it's got a high stat line. Swordmaster's best days were back when Strong Guy was a lot better though. So I think there might be something worth exploring with Strong Guy and Swordmaster, just as the extra stats with some sort of reduction with Sarah. I'm not sure. But it's an okay card. It's just an okay average card, and it will fill if you're looking for a replacement for a card in a deck with discard synergy. Like he will actually do perfectly fine. It's just not a great card.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Darkhawk. Darkhawk is now a 5/4. Really gonna, man, I was enjoying playing some Darkhawk too lately. I was, like you, I was frustrated with the Hella meta. And then I saw there was a list out there which was basically Darkhawk and Annihilus. And I was having a pretty good old time with that. It was working out pretty well. It would Black Widow and Darkhawk and the rocks and all that kind of stuff. And you're filling their hand with stuff so they can't necessarily get what they want to get. I was enjoying it. Well, that's not going to happen anymore. His biggest thing was being a 4, and then you have Zabu in there and stuff. You can get him out, with a combination of cards. And now it's just not going to happen. So yeah, I don't know, man. To me, this is a pretty strong hit to what's been a powerful card for quite a long time.
Far too long.
Yeah.
Far too long, though.
Yeah.
Because I have a long history with Darkhawk being a 5. I said Darkhawk should be a 5 back in January last year.
Yeah.
I've actually feel like Darkhawk has been impacting the way that Marvel Snap decks are built for a very, very, very long time. And yeah, I think this change is about 6 to 8 months overdue, honestly. I know people aren't happy about it. I get that. I think there's probably cynical me would also point out that Darkhawk's probably the card which more people have spent money on than like any of the card in Snap. It's been in
that's
like
true.
Bazillion bundles.
That's
it's
true.
It's been on series. It's been series things multiple times, and they just got the last variant released, and now it's a 5/4. So there's that too. The card's not terrible though. The package is still really good. Korg and Rockslide. The reason they're good isn't that they just because they help Darkhawk, is that they're disruptive cards as well.
Yes.
Black Widow's a disruptive card as well. So there's a package there, but still does a thing and still will work in your decks. You can still play this card. You can still win games with this card. It's just it's been a long deserved change, unfortunately. Yeah. People won't want to admit that, but it's like, yes, Zabu is part of the problem because the reason why I played Darkhawk was because it was Zabu into Darkhawk, but that was so much stronger than so much things you could do for so long. It was I'm not going to use unfair, but it was definitely, you had an advantage if you owned Darkhawk for a very long time in Marvel Snap. And this changes that a little bit. So I'm happy. I'm actually happy with this change myself.
Yeah.
I've never, seeing less Darkhawk makes me happy because I see less Korg and Rockslide. I don't like rocks, never have. But I do think it's actually still a very playable card. The package is just now much worse as a package. It is worse, a lot worse, but it is playable, and it's probably where it should be in stature compared to the rest of the cards.
He joins Dino and Ronin as scalers that are 5 cost. So
and they like Ronin's been so significantly worse to play Ronin Master Mold than Darkhawk, Korg, and Rockslide. That's because Korg and Rockslide do something which is actually very frustrating, and they mess up the other person's game plan. So I'm actually surprised how much love Darkhawk has had so long.
Yeah, very true. All right, we have Ant-Man is going to get a +4 now, but I mean, pretty good, I guess. He's been seeing some play in ongoing decks, Spectrum ongoing, I know, and obviously if you're daring enough to play Zoo in this meta, which doesn't always work out very well unless it's Thanos Zoo, but even then, I don't know. It's an okay change, I guess. I mean, Ant-Man now goes to a 1. What, he's a 1/5, so. Kind of along the lines of what Martyr is, that now you don't have to worry about her losing a lane for you anymore. So I guess I guess it's okay. It's an okay change.
I'm totally fine with this change. It just lifted the ceiling of the Zoo and ongoing decks a tiny little bit, which is needed because they're outclassed in the lower series. They're definitely outclassed when you're full collection.
Yeah,
I've played a bunch of Ant-Man since this change, though, along with Dazzler, with my new art gen.
Dazzler, yes.
He was a standout in that for a little bit there, and it's a significant change. Actually, I've won multiple games because of this change. Don't like it. But there is a condition to it. I know they can be like Martyr and Titania have these negatives, but the condition is you still have to fill that lane. You do have to fill a lane, and that means you're placing 4 resources in that lane usually, and Titania and Marta have different applications. So yeah, they are a little bit different, but yeah, I like the change. I thought this was a good fine change, made sense, doesn't overpower anything. Definitely adds a little tiny bit to some really archetypes which are not doing great.
Yep. Agreed. Yep. Vulture now gets a +6 when he moves. Still, I don't know. I know they're trying to help move out. I know that I'm seeing the Phoenix Force deck being played a lot more now, which is kind of a hybrid of destroy and move. But does traditional, I guess you call it traditional move or just move, ever really get that popular? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I know some people are trying out Spider-Man 2099 a little bit now, but I don't know. I guess this is pretty good. I mean, they do have some cards that can get big. Obviously, Dagger can get big. Now Vulture can get big. Human Torch can get big. I just don't know if it's still not. Whenever I come across a move deck, I'm ready for Heimdall, because 9 times out of 10 they're going to play Heimdall. So if you know that they're going to put Heimdall somewhere and they're going to move everything over, you kind of just avoid the lane. I know
that's a terrible card.
Yeah, it really is. And if that's kind of their last, card that they're always going to have, I don't know. I still think it needs something more other than just a little bit of a change to Vulture.
I can go on a tangent about move, because move has the opposite problem to destroy. You're talking about how destroy is so good. It's like location, but locations don't impact it as much. Move is the complete opposite. Move is impacted by locations more than any other deck. Some people would say that makes it, high skill cap. I hate that term. I don't think it is. I think it's just that the deck is just not as good. The move mechanic itself is strong, but the traditional move deck is based around moving cards to gain power, and that is much harder to do than other ways of gaining power. So it's not that the deck's high skill cap, it's just that the deck's not as good. That's it. It's really that simple. And the reason it's not as good isn't because of the numbers there, it's because it's much harder to do in the game of Marvel Snap to move a card around to get that power than to just play Carnage and get the same power. So change is perfectly fine. They could almost make it 3 + 10 power, and I don't think it would make a difference. It doesn't synergize with the game of Marvel Snap as much as other strategies. So therefore, whenever I see the move, there's always, every time a move change happens, there's a little mini movement move.
Yes.
And it always dies off, not because the decks can't win games, it's because it just doesn't work as simply as other decks, and simpler decks will win in the end. So perfectly fine change. I get it. Does make the deck a little bit better. Doesn't do anything which is important for me. It needs Heimdall. Also, this Vulture, to really hit its ceiling, needs like 2 moves and a Heimdall. And Heimdall's a bad card.
Yeah, it is. They recently buffed it, and it really didn't do anything. That card should really, I don't know, if they're gonna buff that card, they should probably give it double-digit stats, whether it be at 11 or 12 or
it needs to be like Magneto's a 6/12, and Magneto it's just like he has a downside. Yes, but that downside ends up being positive all the time. Heimdall should be 6/12. Like it should be statted like appropriately. It's way off base 6/9.
Yep, absolutely. Lockjaw, wanted to save the best for last. This one got a lot of talk, obviously because of its position in Hela, its position in Thanos. I mean, do you agree with everybody that had said that this was the problem in both of those decks? If there was a problem in both of those decks, that it was Lockjaw that was causing it, because that's the word that was out there. I mean, I don't know. But I don't know. I played a little bit today, and I still am seeing this card. I've seen it in Hela, and I've seen it in Thanos. So I don't know that it really made a whole lot of difference. Yes, they can do less gambling now, but I don't know. I don't really see this as being like the big. Oh my gosh! Everybody was talking. The dog is dead. The dog is passed on. That's all I heard. Yeah. That was all I heard all week. But yeah, I mean, what do you think of the Lockjaw change?
This is like overdue since they made Marvel Snap.
Yeah.
I have my own like little internal philosophy about how Marvel Snap the game works, which informs a lot of what I do. And Lockjaw just cheats Marvel Snap and has done since it was created, this is a card which had a similar effect since the start. It is one of, even win rate aside, and people like to talk about win rates and this deck's doing well and it's okay because X, Y, and Z, blah blah blah. There is context. Lockjaw has always, since the day Marvel Snap was created, been a broken card. It's still not. It's still busted as it is. To me, the way I like to describe it is Lockjaw is the best energy cheating card in Marvel Snap. So when you put a 1-cost card in and you get a 6-cost card out, you've paid 1, you've cheated 5 energy, and you put a 6-cost card on the board. And as the game has evolved, there's more and more ways to abuse that by moving cards back out of there with Space Stone and stuff like that. You've got Kaera now, which defends the 6 drops. Like there is context to why it got to the point where it was stronger than it needed to be. But I've always thought this card is busted. It has been number 1 of my least favorite cards forever.
Yeah.
I think it takes away from what I found. This is obviously personal. Not some people find it enjoyable, the gambling part, but I actually like the challenge of playing against somebody and not being like, they've put that there, which means they can't do this and they can't do that, and I try and work out what I can do with that.
Yep.
Lockjaw just threw that all out the window and went, hey, here, dog, here's my stone. What do you want to bring me? If it brought them the blob, I lose. But if it brought them any of the 3 other stones in their deck, I win. I know, like, I'm usually pretty rational and I can put that to one side and not get too annoyed at it. But when that happens to you 3 or 4 games in a row and the person on the other end is snapping and you're like, I know your odds were only 20% there to do that. Why are you snapping on me?
Yeah.
I get very frustrated. It is the one card what got to me. I really didn't like it. And it could be cost 7 and I'd still think it would needed a bigger nerf. So I'm very biased about this one. Having said all that, I do think 4 is a big change. I think there's a lot of attempts to use Zabu and other things to do it. I don't think they will. I think the deck is significantly worse at 4 energy with Lockjaw.
Yeah.
Thanos is able to take this hit more than Hela. Hela is much worse now with this. So I do think they made a good change overall.
Yeah.
But I would have liked him to do something else. I would have just killed the card.
Yeah, they could have just reworked it somehow. I mean, it really wasn't. I guess he kind of fits with his description a little bit because he teleports characters. So I guess that's kind of true to the way what he does, But I don't know. Someone suggested, I don't remember who. I was listening to another show that was saying to make him be tired and maybe he only could do it once or something like that a game. And I don't know. I agree. He's a cool card. To me, I think I might have just reworked the dumb thing and just been done with it. Just reworked the card. Yeah.
Look, I said a very long time to someone, like, I feel like they, it's no slight on Marvel Snap developers, but they need to probably recognize that not every sort of effect needs to be in their game.
Yes.
And because their game is different to other card games. So, like, it's not, if this card in other games would be significantly worse because there's 30 to 60 cards in different games. This game has 12 cards in 6 turns. So anything which does anything cheaty, you have to be like it. People are going to find a way to abuse this at 4-5. Is what I'm trying to say.
No doubt.
Will not. They won't give up on this because the way that the Marvel Snap deck creation and what people like to do develops is usually around how can I cheat as much as possible.
Yeah.
They don't want to. And Lockjaw is still a cheaty card, and someone will find some combination which works really well again with this.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
The one thing I am happy about is when Lockjaw and Hela together really frustrated me because that was just pure gambling. No, it was not. People who say that was skill based, I'm on the opposite side of that fence, and I know I'm disagreeing with people. People who are very smart about the game on that one too. I didn't think that was a skill based game, Hela Lockjaw.
No,
I think it's that deck in particular is much worse with this. Like that wanted turn 4 cycle. Much more than Thanos. Thanos can deal with playing it on 4 and do stuff still. So.
Yeah.
I was very happy. I can't explain how happy I was when I actually did this one.
I wasn't upset about it either. After all the hella that I had seen and Lockjaw and stuff, yeah, no, I wasn't that upset about it either. So, all right, well, that is the balance update. So we're gonna move on. We have a new season starting tomorrow. We were talking about comic books earlier. Obviously, this was a big one. Avengers versus Xmen is what is starting tomorrow with this card. So this is the season pass card, and it is Hope Summers. Hope Summers is a 3/4. After you play a card here, you get +1 energy next turn. That's pretty good. I mean, it's always good getting extra energy. You know, a little bit later in the game, obviously, but I don't know. I mean, this card could maybe bring back you might see Kitty Pryde come back with this card. You might see, you know, something where you see Kitty and Angela and Elsa maybe a little bit with this card, but very interesting. Obviously, Thanos, a lot of people, of course, go right to Thanos because they've got all the stones they could play in the lane. So I don't know. It seems like it's a pretty good season pass card. I don't know if it's sometimes people look at it at a card and right away, this is broken. This is going to, but I don't know. It seems like probably a decent ramp card. Although I don't know if it's going to find a home in a traditional ramp because, those are Electro, of course, like the Sandman lists, Electro, Sandman, Wave. I don't know if she'll find a home in that. But what do you think of the season pass card, Hope Summers?
Look, my honest first reaction when I saw this line of text, I didn't even look at the 3/4. I saw that line of text. I'm like, I hope you've tested that a lot, because that's something. The downside of this card, I was looking at positives and downsides. Like the balancing factor of this card seems to be that you have to use free energy to play it, and you won't be able to get access to the energy till turn 5.
Yes,
that seems to be that balancing factor. So you'll get her down for 3/4, which is on starts, and then you've got to play cards in her lane.
Yep.
And then the next turn you'll have extra energy. So you actually only get extra energy turns 5 and 6 potentially. And you have to build a deck which has cheap enough cards to play into her and move and then do all that too. So it could just be that it ends up actually being quite awkward to play at times, but it's extra energy, and I can think of 20 different decks I want to try with her, so I can't see her being bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna find a way to get her in a Galactus deck. I don't know exactly how I'm gonna do it. But
it'll be Marta on the left, and you play her on. You play Jeff on turn 2. He'll play turn 3 her. And turn 4 will be that you'd want to drop 4 or 5 cards to get priority at the same time. I just don't. The problem will be that after Galactus, what will you do? Yeah,
Goliath.
That's often a problem that people. It's a trap people fall into with deck building a lot of the time. You do I do this, and this, and then you're like, and then how do I win the game?
And then what? Yeah.
The problem with this card I see is that it's actually more narrow than it might seem. So the best strategy I can think of so far is Silk, Kitty, Craven, that package with her. So you got the extra energy, you get an early Doom or Vision out, and then you use the extra energy just to play an extra card alongside Goliath or Doom or something. That's the best I can think of so far. But there's lots I want to try with this one, so I can't see it being bad.
Yeah. The season overall looks pretty good, and of course we're getting this as well. Comes out tomorrow also. This looks like it's going to be crazy. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what this is going to be. Now they're saying, I guess there was someone out there that was saying they weren't sure. They had asked questions. They asked Len, I guess, whether or not if, she could just end up copying. If there's 2 6s in your deck, it could just go 6 to 6. So you can just stay at 6. They'll both copy each other, and then they end up staying at 6 cost. I don't know.
Yes. No, I've heard the same.
Yeah. So I don't know what this is going to be. Like you were talking about earlier with gambling and stuff like that. Well, technically you're gambling here. I know you can throw a Wasp, and you could throw a Yellow Jacket. People are thinking into their decks, and then you're going to come out with a 0 something like a big card, like a 0 Magneto or a 0 Galactus or a 0 something like that. But it's not always going to work that way. It's not going to always work in your favor. So you're taking a risk. as to what it's going to be. Mobius is probably going to become a little popular maybe when she comes out if people are playing this a lot. But I don't know. What do you think of Pixie?
I think it's a bad card.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's gonna frustrate me so much.
Yeah.
I don't like this one at all. I just dislike the fact that this will be something that someone will play on too. They're gonna snap as they play it, like Mr. Negative, and then it'll be in the hands of Snap to what happens from there. And they'll lose a lot. Like, this is a worse Mr. Negative. So I'm behind the curtains. This is the one I'm on duty to do Pixie this week. So I've done my work for Snap Zone on this one already, and it's basically like the way that I analyzed it is it's the Mr. Negative. You play it, and all the cards, you know what their power is going to be. Pixie, you play it, you don't know what's going to happen with your cards. Like, you could draw Magneto at 6 still. You could draw a 0 cost Doom. Like, it's pure RNG chaos, and it's as you may have noticed earlier with what I said about Lockjaw and Hell, that's not something I really think they need to add more of to this game at all. Really, So I'm not sure. I do think her best applications, just like Wasp and Yellow Jacket, might be too much. Like, you play 3 to 4, 0 to 1 cost cards, a few mid-game cards, and play a few 6 cost cards, and then just play Pixie on 2, and sometimes win and sometimes don't. I think is the best line. Mobius, people talking about Mobius being the counter. I actually think Mobius is the enabler here. The line you want is Pixie into Mobius and then draw cards, which is what I want to try out in Warlock in. So we'll see. We'll see. But that's what you want to do, is you actually want Mobius to enable this card, because the last thing you want is for your draw to be a 1 cost card, which now costs 6.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the thing that people keep forgetting with this card, is like, it doesn't just turn your expensive cards to make them cheaper. It also makes your cheaper cards expensive. Mr. Negative doesn't do that, and Mr. Negative is already a close to 40% win rate deck, which people, they go through phases where everyone thinks Mr. Negative's the savior again, and then everyone realizes that it's just too inconsistent again, and they go back off it. So that's what I imagine will happen. Pixie is going to go tomorrow. Everyone's going to jump on Pixie decks. They're going to have all the highlights. Social media is going to have, look at this, what I did with my Pixie. And then 2 days later, we'll all recognize that it's a 40% win rate deck, and we should stop playing it.
Yeah, I have never had any success with any of those RNG decks. Mr. Negative, I may have tried to play like a few times down the road, and I never get the right cards. I said I'll draw Mr. Negative, and then I'll also have a handful of the cards I wanted to be negative already there, or I just don't draw him. One or the other, and I agree. They're not my cup of tea.
With Pixie, the problem that I found when I was building decks for her was like the balance was all off. Like, you can't. There's nothing, but you have to hit a very specific swap for it to be valuable. So if you try and build one, so you're like, I want a 0 cost Doom. Well, you need Wasp in your deck, you need Doom in your deck, and you need Wasp to swap with Doom. So there's no reliability at all. Mr. Negative, at least. Even though it screws you lots because you draw the good card, your bad cards. Yeah. Mr. Negative decks are bad because what you do is you put a bunch of low power, high cost cards in your deck, which are only going to win you the game if they flip. So you draw 3 of them before you play Mr. Negative every single time anyway. Yep. Possibly 4 or 5 before you get to play him. So you've drawn half of your deck, which is all built to be flipped to be powerful, and you've got the other half. So yes, there's times when you get it and you blow the person out of the water. But more times than you don't, you actually just draw all the cards and you don't do anything. That's why it's bad. Pixie, if you try and build to win with her effects, like, it's totally unreliable whatsoever. You can't do it. You can't actually build that way. And you're going to draw half your deck before you get, like, you're going to draw her on 2. You play her on 2, but you've already drawn 3 cards, 4 cards then anyway. So you're hitting the other 8 cards. You're going to draw another 5 of them. So you're drawing 5 flipped cards and you don't know what they flipped with. It's just not a reliable effect. So you can't actually build for effect. So what I ended up doing was a lot of the decks will come out from my article tomorrow. Basically, like, good decks which can benefit from Pixie if she's paid sometimes. And I think that's what you'll find is how she's most successful. But then you'll find my issue with her is then you can start looking at the deck and be like, do I actually even need her in it? Or do I just build a consistent strategy? And that's going to be that kind of her cycle. So I think she's the worst card of the month.
Yeah, I can see that.
Far.
There are some other real strong cards coming. I mean, War Machine looks absolutely incredible. And Mockingbird looks like she's going to be pretty good. So yeah, I would probably agree that that this one would probably be the worst of the bunch. So, all right. I have to get your opinion, and I like to talk about this too. Obviously, you know, you're writing articles about Snap and things like that. So I want your opinion on this. The future of the game. You played games and stuff. We talked about that, and you know, you played Hearthstone. What do you think about Snap and where it's headed? So, you know, I know a lot of people now, the big thing talking this week, and when they saw the data mines and when they saw, you know, what's coming out this week now, there are no Series 4 cards. It's all Series 5 this month. So if that continues and if they continue going forward like that, I guess two questions. One, where do you think what do you think is the state of the game? How do you think it is looking for going forward? And then if you could change one thing about the game, what would you change?
Okay. It's a tough question. So I'll start by delaying and talking about the money thing quickly.
Yeah.
The game has gone through ebbs and flows. It's probably not more expensive now than it was last year at the same time. So it's probably cheaper, just to be clear. But I still think it costs too much. Like I've definitely, like, I just don't spend on Snap anymore. There's no point. There's no reason to. Like I feel like I'm throwing money down. So, but as personal opinions, and some people want to spend, they can do. But yeah, when I open the game in Australia, every single day there's $100 Australian bundle sitting in my shop, and that doesn't make me feel good at all.
No, that's a lot.
Sort of thing that I would normally just, if I wasn't doing what I do, I would just go, I'm not going to engage with this. Like that's not for me. And recently I went to a few card game shops playing some Dragon Ball and talked to people about it there, and they've all, like, lots of people are just dropping off because, like, it's too expensive. Like, and people like to throw terms like pay to win around loosely, like too loosely in gaming communities. So I don't think Snap is pay to win, but you are advantaged by owning all the cards in Marvel Snap. Owning every single card, have an advantage over someone who doesn't have every single card. I'm comfortable saying that I have that advantage. Now, I play at a level where I play against most people who have got every single card. I play against people who, every single time I play against them, they have whatever the latest thing is in the shop is equipped on their avatar. Like they are buying everything. So that they're not. There is like a point where they're not getting much more advantage. But I can say with full confidence that I have benefited from owning everything in this game. Like, I win more games because I've owned certain cards before other people. And not a lot of people are comfortable admitting that. But I have definitely benefited from owning a card. Same with any card game. So I'm not saying that's a problem necessarily. Every card game is like that. Again, I'm delaying so I can get to the question, the other part of the question in a second. With Dragon Ball, I got into recently a physical game. Like, yeah, I got absolutely stomped by some people because they had the good card and I didn't have the good card. Like, I was playing a mirror, but I only had one of the good card, and they had four of them. I can't. What am I meant to do? I lose. Yep. That's card games, and people will sometimes dismiss all these discussions because of that. But this Marvel Snap is at its core a mobile game as well, and it succeeds because it's a mobile game. So the concern is for me that more and more people are opening the game. They see the $120 price tag, even if it doesn't actually cost them that much to actually engage with the game, which it doesn't. You can engage with this game for a lot less than that. They see these price tags and they get sticker shock and they stop playing. Yeah. And I think it is actually happening. There are people I've spoken to anecdotally, but I don't think the figures are as blown out as people think it is. I don't think the game's dying. I don't think any of that's happening yet. But I think they're on a trajectory to eventually be a game which is dying. They release cards in such a weird fashion. The one card release a week is like, it's great for people like me who make content. Like, excellent. There's always something new going on in Snap. Although there really isn't at the same time. Like most releases actually don't change anything. It's just that that's a new thing. So everyone plays it for a little bit. They look at it, they try it out, and eventually we work out nothing's actually changed, and the game is still the same game, where you need to put more power on 2 lanes, and the deck from last week is probably just fine still. So there's this what happens, and it's exhausting. The cycle is exhausting, because if you're playing at that against that all the time, you find the new deck seems so strong to you, and you're stuck playing against this deck, and you can't get the card, and you just go, well, fuck it, I'm not going to play. That's more than I'm sorry, but that's what happens.
That's all good.
And it's, the release cycle does this, and there isn't enough variety to the game to actually sustain it, which actually brings me to what I think the real problem is. The game is becoming less fun because it is more figured out than ever before right now. There is less variety, and therefore less. And people, I think people get a bit worked up on. They explain this differently, and I think in a way it doesn't really get the point across. I don't care if I play against Destroy 10 times in a row. I care about the fact that nothing else might actually be as good a strategy as that. So I'm also playing Destroy 10 times in a row, and the game is boring then, and it becomes more and more boring. But at least before this last few weeks, this last 2 months in particular, have really highlighted it, because they've allowed strategies like Hela and Lockjaw to be the best strategies, which were really out of your control to some degree. Yes, there was edges you can find to be better at them, but the outcome was like totally out of control. Like I'm not engaging in a game anymore. So I'm pressing play. I see if I draw the cards. I didn't draw the cards. The other person did. They snapped. I stayed in. I lost 4 cubes. Oh, well. That's not fun. It's not a fun, engaging experience, and people will stop playing the game. And there are people who do, and they've gone back to more serious card games. But that doesn't mean the game's dying, because it just means the player base is different, maybe. But
yeah,
I think the biggest problem they have is that the game is the release cycle is too small. Cards are good for 2 or 3 days when they come out, and that's about it.
Yeah,
that is not good enough for a game that costs so much money per card. But then if you make it OP and everyone has to chase every single card, you've got the complete opposite problem where everyone's paying too much. That comes from releasing 1 card at a time. I think that's a mistake, and they need to stop doing that. So if I was to change anything at all, I would actually just completely upend how they release cards. So I think it's a cycle which is not sustainable for most people. I also wouldn't change do balance patches as much. I would be looking to try and actually create a sustained balance experience. They balance patch just to get out of having the problem that they've created for themselves with this release cycle. So 2 things. Probably change the way that the balance patches actually happen, maybe structure that a bit differently, and I would structure the way they release cards entirely differently. Have my own personal ideas of how to do it. I don't know if mine are good, but I think it's the underlying problem to almost everything about Snap, and it is making the game less fun over time, because they have to remove power. So what's happening is they're removing power from cards because they have to, because it gets too popular, because it's too powerful on release. And then what they did over the last 3 or 4 months is they slowly moved the power down until the best thing to do was Hela, was a card which was based on discarding your cards. They made that consistent, and they thought that was a good idea, and that really drove me away. I spent 2.5 years. I was like, I just don't want to play. I'm just not going to play. I just did what I had to. I played dailies, and I stopped playing. Why would I play a game which, like, card games are fun because you're engaging in a strategic decisions against somebody, and you can't take that away. And they slowly took that away, and they're slowly doing it again by removing power. Ranted a little bit there, but in short,
it's all good. Yeah, I know. Listen,
the way they release cards is that is where I would start and see from there. But they really need to figure out how they make the game stay fun without having to resort to RNG, because RNG is exhausting.
Yeah,
and the people who want to stay and play 10 hours of a game of RNG might spend money, but there won't be as many of them. I can tell you that. There's less of them. So I'm not one of them people.
No. I agree. I started thinking to myself, going back to, when I played Magic and stuff, and I wonder if they would go to like some sort of packs rather than just like you were saying, like 4 cards. So, and rather than do like a set, but then you would almost think, I mean, I don't think they could, there's so many heroes and side cards that they could do, even if they wanted to start including side characters, like other people that were involved in the universe.
There's no issue with characters. Like, I've literally been playing Marvel Duel, which is only out in Asia, and you go to my
I saw it. Oh, I meant to ask you about that, actually.
You can go to my Xbox Twitter you can go to my Xbox Twitter if you want to find out how to get into it without, and I won't talk about it on YouTube.
I meant to ask you about that. Yeah.
But that game's got like hundreds of characters. Like, Marvel's no shortage of characters. They could make a proper card. They can make a Hearthstone game if they wanted to with the amount of characters they got.
I was thinking,
it's not an issue. It's not an issue at all. You can make stuff up as well. Like, there's not a problem.
Yeah.
Problems are like they're pushing themselves to these 1-month seasons. Release 4 cards, now 5. But they're releasing more cards because they're trying to shake it up. They're trying to make you stay interested.
Right.
Because it becomes the problem with Snap's actually a very simple game. It's not a very complicated game. And we pretend it's like more complicated than it is. Like, it's really simple. It's 2 lanes, put more power on the lane on the board. It's not very complicated, which means it's easier to solve, which means that it's easy for a top dog to happen. And I personally would make seasons longer and release more cards at a time.
Yep.
As a starting point, and potentially if how did the imbalance patch, you might more specifically do that and have like changes which align with your theme instead of having to. They're strapping themselves to push all this content out, and they're not actually focusing on the balance of the game. I don't think this game is balanced, and that's making for an unfun experience.
Yeah. I can't argue with you. I mean, there's been a lot of times when I'm a very casual player. I let that be known. I mean, I just don't have the time to play as much as I would like to. There are times when I could sit for an hour or so, but to sit there and play on the level of where you'd have to play to get where you wanted to be, sometimes I just don't have. So, but yeah, I don't know. I would agree. I would kind of hope that, they have like these plans about what they're going to do in the future. I kind of hope that one of them is some sort of, they did mention new game mode, but that's way out there. And I don't know if that's going to occur, but I was thinking, even if it's something like a sealed pack or a sealed deck or something like that, like something along those lines. I don't know. But I like your answers, doing more with the releases and stuff like that. So yeah, I would agree.
It's hard for them. Like, they don't have an easy job on that, but they've created a lot of these problems themselves with how they decided to go about releasing it. So yeah, I acknowledge that it's not. They're not in a good spot. With what then. The writings, like, there's just little signs what worry me. But for me, primarily, it all comes all games, all video games. All video games, all card games, everything. Yeah. The one most important thing. And the thing what will really, or people say, I'm going to leave because it costs too much. I'm going to leave because I did this shitty thing. I'm going to leave because they said something about somebody. The real reason people leave games or stop playing games is because they're no longer fun.
Yeah.
That's it. It's really that simple.
100%.
And I can tell you that I found the game a lot less fun the last 4 weeks, 8 weeks. It slowly got less and less fun. They nerfed power out of cards, which allowed you to actually do variable things. They made it they took away complexity, and it's becoming less fun. And I think that's starting to get across to other people, especially when the Hella stuff started going down the ladder. Like, that was at the top of the ladder a lot earlier. It was exhausting already, and it slowly got further down. As it got further down, I started seeing more of the complaints. But the game needs to be fun first and foremost, and everything else people will complain about and there'll be discourse about. But the reality is, if the game's fun, people will still be playing it, and they've got to work on that.
Yeah, absolutely, very true. I love it. Very true.
And I want to because I like the artwork. I want to keep playing it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan. That's the reason why I'm doing this. It's like, I would have never thought I would be, doing something like this for the game. But like you said, I enjoy playing, so that's the reason why I do this. And so I want to see it be successful. But I agree with you. I wasn't having fun with the Hella stuff either. It's just obnoxious. When you get out there and the minute you see a couple cards get discarded, you're like, oh, it's Hella, and I'm more than likely going to lose unless they don't get lucky and draw the Hella. So
the thing, and I'll do one more round. I'm a ranter too, so
no,
get along.
Yeah, that's that's what I do. So go right ahead.
No, like whenever they do the balance patch notes, they talk about like, oh, there was no 50%, and there was multiple playable things. Yes, during the Hella meta, there was a lot of playable things. Hella wasn't significantly stronger win rates and all this crap, but their metrics are all flawed because it was unfun. Like, it was not fun being able to sit there and watch Black Cat get discarded, and then watch Blade discard Infinite, and then be like, I wonder what's going to happen next. And then Lockjaw gets played. All right, there's no counterplay. There's no interaction in
nope. Nothing you can do.
And people misuse the term interaction. Like, oh, but you can play Cosmo. It's like, yeah. No, that's not what I mean. All of my turns were not mattering until turn 6. So when I'm playing against a Hella deck, you were playing against it, and they were doing all their crap, and I'm doing my crap. And it comes up to turn 4 or 5, and I'm trying to work out, like, well, what are the odds of where the cards are going to land, so I can put power somewhere. Turn 6 is all that really matters. And then turn 6 comes along, and you've got to decide, am I going left or right? And generally, if you pick left or right and you go for it, you can beat it. You can actually beat it quite consistently. But it was just a crapshoot. They had no clue what was going to happen. I have no clue what's going to happen. I just got to take a guess. Yep. So they've decided to play a gambling deck, but I have to engage in the only way I can beat you is by engaging in the same game, but you've decided that I'm playing now, which has made it very unfun. So that's where you get this discourse about like interaction and all this crap. It was it was the interaction issue was actually from the very start, because you didn't see them play Nebula on the right and go, okay, now I get to decide, do I play into that Nebula lane or do I play left or right, middle? You didn't get to do that. They just played Blade, and you're like, oh yeah, I don't know. I might play in front of Blade, I might not. Like, the game's not engaging, and therefore it wasn't fun. And it was only going to get worse. So I'm glad they did something about Lockjaw. But I'd stopped playing Lockjaw in my Hella deck a long time before that happened anyway. So I do think you can still play Hella, but at least when it's not got Lockjaw involved, at least there's one less random thing. So yeah, I know the win rate wasn't that great. People will say that. Like, it wasn't like it was the best deck in the game, but it was definitely like it circumvented what actually makes Snap engaging entirely. And if you're not engaged in something, people stop playing.
It's funny you mentioned that, because there was I don't know if you saw it. In fact, it was out there right before I came on to talk to you. Someone brought up the very similar conversation to what you're having now, and brought it up as a question to Glenn, and asked him about the fun in the game, which was very interesting. And it wasn't really much of an answer, I didn't think. But he, they asked him very similar things, saying about how they mentioned the fun of the game, and how he brought up some of these other cards that they nerfed because it wasn't fun. I mentioning Galactus, he mentioned a couple other cards as well. I guess there were more obnoxious cards, and said, are you really considering this? I don't know what word for word, but you'll have to check it out, because it's very interesting that you brought that up, because someone else did too. And I didn't really feel that the answer was that forthcoming.
No, I've said it myself, and I'm comfortable with saying it to them when I get a chance to. Yeah. They focus on these stats and metrics and stuff like more when I don't know. I'm like, did you actually play during this meta? Sometimes, like, it just feels like you're missing the point of what the issue is with some of them cards. But like, yeah, they're not wrong. That I think I've seen that comment. That person's not wrong. Like, in the last 2 months during December, Annihilus was overpowered and should have been touched in some way. Miss Marvel was overpowered, but that was clear from the start. So why did you release it like that? And then you've got Blob, which should have been changed in some way. But then as you
sure.
change these, the game was built around these cards were taking over, obviously, but you were built, the interaction and deck building was around these cards. So you took them all away, and you took away power, and then you push it into, like the best thing to do is just to discard cards and randomly throw them everywhere. Like they did this to themselves. Like that's what I'm trying to say. Like the reason this deck wasn't good before is context. That there was ways to consistently attack all 3 lanes, and their random 1 lane win wasn't going to beat you. But now there's less of them consistent ways to do that. Then Hella was therefore better. So
yeah.
We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, yeah, I don't disagree. I think I've seen that comment. I don't disagree with what that person was trying to say. And I didn't. The answer is a bit of a non-answer. And yeah, we could argue about stats as all we wanted. And I agree. I probably was only 50% against Hellas. I wasn't losing to them more than I lost to them. But it definitely didn't want to play against it.
Yep.
I didn't want to play it's not a strategy game to me. That was something else.
Yeah.
And it was rewarding. It was rewarding people who just played more than it was people who actually played well for quite some time.
Yep. Yeah. Well, listen, it's all summed up. And like you said, it's if you're not having fun doing this, then there's no sense in doing it. I mean,
you should play it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. If you're not having fun, you shouldn't be playing it. And I think there's a massive sunk cost community around Marvel Snap. I could talk about for a whole hour with you, but I won't. But there's definitely some, and I've been accused of it, and I was offended when I was accused of it because I was like, that's not me. I'm telling you right now, I've played a lot less this month because I didn't enjoy it. Like I do the same, but I do make content around the game, so you do have to play the game to do that. So you don't get to choose.
Yeah.
You actually have to play. You're going to write about. I'm not the sort of person who could sit there and be like, I'll try and tell you what's good if I'm not actually trying it. So that necessitates I'm going to play the game, but that also means I'm going to come across the problems in the game more often than other people. So yeah, but if you're not having fun, you shouldn't play it. Honestly, that's no doubt. That will always be true.
Yep. Of anything, really. And going back to what we first started, when we first started talking, we were talking about things we enjoy, talking about video games we enjoy and everything else. You should, like you said, you should do things that you enjoy. If something is just irritating you, that's why I went on and I did that little thing that I did last week because I wanted to kind of talk about, getting upset with things and how, it's been something that's been going on since my grandparents were playing Pinochle years ago. But they deep down enjoyed it. If they didn't, they would stop playing. And that's
Snap. Yeah, Snap. That's Snap. Yeah. Everyone's like, the people say they don't like it, and then they keep playing it because they enjoy the challenge and what it's doing for you. But I think that like certain people saying card games, the metagame can swap around and stuff like that. They can't. The game has to be able to appeal to all the different sorts of people they want to keep playing it. Because you drop off a game like Marvel Snap, you don't come back.
Yep.
I can tell you from Hearthstone. Hearthstone I played for years and years and years and years and years. They added more RNG, and I didn't like what they were doing. I stopped playing for a little bit. I just stopped playing altogether.
Yep.
Yeah. It doesn't work like that. I don't get that argument that this meta's not for you. Just wait for the next one. No, there has to be something in the game for everybody, and they don't do that in Snap. They make the game very it goes like games now for you. Games now for you. Games now for you. And I see it all the time. There's players who are better at certain decks, and you see them higher up when the game's for them. But it's like that's exhausting. No one's going to want to keep doing that. Anyway. I remember that one from last week, and you're right.
Yeah,
reflecting on how Marvel Snap is the most tilting of all the games because
it's crazy. It's crazy.
The Snap mechanic does it too.
It does.
It's the most tilting thing. It's great in theory, but it actually drives people up the wall. It does it to me too. Why is that? You didn't have any of that. You played that infuriates you. You're I don't understand why. The worst for me is actually when people stay. When I snap and I'm like, it's very clear I have X, Y, and Z, and they stayed and they pull out a 1 in 100. Yeah, that tilts me, and then they fist bump you, and it's like, why? No, I don't respect. You didn't do anything right there. There's a real.
You don't. Yeah, 100%.
That's Snap gives you this they give people this power fantasy with the snap. Like, I can snap and I've got extra power and I'm going to do more and all this stuff. And it's just a tilting mechanic. It's actually built to tilt. Like, I know that when they made the game, they were like, this is going to make you feel better about leaving. And there is a subset of people who that's great and it makes them feel better about leaving. And I definitely feel better about leaving for one cube. But the majority of the time, what happens is you just ended up in the same situation you would have done for 2 cubes, but you lost 4 instead. And it was all random. And it was that's infuriating. That's infuriating. It drives people at the wall. And I don't know how they fix that, because it's not an experience you actually want to go on multiple times, honestly.
Yep. It's funny because it's when the game first came out, and again we go back to the start, and what attracted me to the game was the fact that it was going to be it was shown to be for casuals, but when you look at it, it's ultimately, right, as a casual, yes, okay, you can't maybe play all that much, but you still deep down inside, and it's just when you play a game, you want to win. Yeah, absolutely.
Win. Exactly.
And so if you're not, like you said, you have a mechanic where you can leave the game, but ultimately you don't want to leave the game. That's not why you're playing. No. You're playing because you want to win. And so even as a casual, if you want to win, and you're just starting to say to yourself, well, I can't, the way this works, I can't make set a goal of myself to make infinite, because it's just not going to probably happen, because I just don't have the time.
I don't think anyone should set the goal to make infinite.
Like that.
Like, how do I improve? How do I improve at making reads and decisions in the game that matter?
Yeah.
And leaving games is one of the decisions that matters, but it's easy to overcorrect that too. Like, you can end up leaving too much. Like, it's nothing. I know. I get creators. Most creators, they play far too much. I'm included too in this.
Yeah.
To some degree, and I don't stream everything, so you don't see everything about how much I play. But like, they got the time to really appreciate and take them edges and take the time retreating and stuff. But if you're 100%. Sitting there, and I've done these days too, and especially the last 2 weeks when I've played less, and I've got my dailies to do, and I go on, and I've got 20 minutes. I might even have 10 minutes. I'm trying to get the four cost cards done. There is nothing worse than drawing and knowing you should leave 3 games in a row. It compounds over time. So you leave one. It's like, great, I left one. I played 1 turn. I left another one 3 turns later. I didn't play a game again. I left the next one 3 turns later. But you're not playing a game. And I remember a conversation I had recently with someone outside of the Snap community about it. He was talking about the Snap game, and he was like, one of the biggest reasons they stopped playing was because it didn't feel like they were actually playing a game. Like, they were just like, we'd play for 1 turn, someone would snap and I'd leave. Like, it wasn't a game. And it's like, that really hit home for me, the way they described that, because that's a big problem for a casual player, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So you can't, like, yes, it's advertised as you can play a game in 3 to 4 minutes, which is technically true, but you cannot have success in Marvel Snap playing a game for 3 to 4 minutes.
That is true.
It's not, you are playing a game. You got to sit down. I found this to be true. You need to sit down with like half an hour to an hour to be able to have success. You need to sit down and go, I have 30 minutes to an hour free now. I'm going to play 30 minutes to an hour worth of games and see how I do over that time. That's the only way to really, you can't just go, I'm going to the toilet and play 1 game now and free to go. And I do both. I do both these problems. I can tell you now, when I sit down, like yesterday, where I sat down, had 2 hours yesterday, and I sat down and played 2 hours of games, and I went up like 100 ranks because I sat down and I was able to go, I'm leaving this game, staying in for this one. I'm going to make my decision. I'm going to fit that. When I'm sitting there and I'm trying to sneak games in and stuff like that, it's just tilting. It just tilts you more, because then you see the cubes go and you go, all right, I've got to go back and try and get them back now. And it is a fallacy, and I know you're not meant to do that, but the average person will do that. And yeah, when that person said that to me about, you're not actually playing, I wasn't playing much of a game, I was like, okay, I get that. It really sank in, and it is a problem that a casual play of Marvel Snap puts on you. Because for you, it's even harder, because you get to see, like, you're engaged in this community enough to see all the rest of it. And I've heard you say it yourself as well. Like, you go, them players are playing 10, 12 hours sometimes to get to that. There's streamers who are doing the 24 hours to infinite stuff, and they are playing a lot. They are very good players, a lot of them.
Oh, no doubt.
That's why they can do it. But there is also And I think I came up with this term a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's true. With Marvel Snap, there is a skill-based element. Yes, there is. But there is also twice as much time-based element.
Yes.
So like, if you are better at the game, it is easier. I'm trying to be humble here a little bit. I might play less than somebody else and end up much higher rank than them because I might be playing better than they do.
Yep.
But if you can actually cover up any failure in Marvel Snap by just playing more. There's what I call a skill plus time times 2 is what happens with Snap. Like you can brute force this game by playing more because of the way the cube system works. And if you can just stay in more games, you will get the cubes back and you will climb more because you're playing more. And casual players get really frustrated, infuriated, or people with less time because what happens is you're doing really, really well and you hit that bad patch. And unlike someone who's got 10 hours to play, that bad patch is your one time to play that day, and it just ruins you.
Yep.
You knock down and you just keep going and you keep going, you get worse and worse. And yes, you can be told that's not the right thing to do, you should walk away and all that, but you're not going to because you've decided you want to play this fun game and you're not having fun anymore. You're not trying to get it back. It's just human nature. And I get that. Yes, you can control that and you'll get higher up, but yeah, Snap really, really, really benefits. You really benefit from Snap with having more time. You do.
Yep.
You do benefit in Marvel Snap from having more time to play. There's no way around it. Not a lot of people admit it, but it's true.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that because I've told people that too. I've said that to, I just know because that's the experience that I have. When I can sit and like I said, I do goofy stuff with this game now and enjoy it. I do that Agatha thing every single weekend and I enjoy the hell out of it. I think it's hilarious. The fact that I could go and make a stupid deck and throw in cards for weekend missions and it works and I win some games is like the most fun thing I do. But yeah, you're right. I have seen that firsthand and it does get frustrating. And that's why I mentioned it. I think I mentioned it in a couple shows back that I did. It's like a lot of people are watching creators, like yourself or like others who stream because they want to. And for me, I was taking it all in. When I first started this game, I was watching, oh my gosh, Binks, Molt, Cozy, Alex. I was watching everybody because I just wanted to get ideas of, okay, these guys are good at this. They play a lot. So I kind of wanted to check that out and just see what they're doing. I'd listen to the podcasts and all that stuff. But the one thing, as you just said, that not everybody mentions is that, and they don't, you can watch them and kind of see that they're playing a lot. But the thing is that what people don't get, especially casual players necessarily, is that they're playing hours and hours and hours and hours more than you. And like you mentioned, you want to get better at a game, you got to play it. And if you just don't have the time to do so,
you won't get better.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Which is totally fine. But the problem what people miss when they have these arguments about games, they're like, you should just have fun with something else in it then. It's like, yeah, that's all true. But people have fun by winning the game. It's not, that. I have more fun with Marvel Snap when I am winning than when I am losing. I'm sorry, it is true. And not many people will want to admit that. It is true. Yeah. I can tell you that is definitely true. I am having more fun when I'm winning. Yeah.
That goes back to any game. You can go back to games that we play when we were kids. You're sitting there playing checkers. You want to win. That's the whole point.
I want to lose. I don't go into checkers go, I want to lose. But if you, the thing really can, like, some people, I don't know, I can't find the right words for this yet, but the reason people might come back to it is because they felt like they were in the game, they were playing a game. And Snap has the problem of, to really make the most of your time with Snap, you actually have to not play the game and get out of so many games. And actually, that's a very exhausting thing to do for people. Like, it's hard to put words to it, but it's something I really think is a core problem.
Yeah, because it feels deep down inside like you lost. Even if you left, it feels like you lost. Well, I lost. I have to leave. They're going to beat me. I know what they have. I have to leave. So leaving still feels like losing. And that, listen, I've watched the guys like Lambie talk about psychology of the game. And yes, there is psychology to this.
They're great at it.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Correct.
No doubt. That video I watched from him when he was talking about how you almost have to play the game with no emotion, that's very true, but that's hard to do. That's very, very hard to do. When you're an older guy like me. I mean, I'm in my mid-50s now. I was conditioned from a young man. When I'm sitting there across a board playing my grandfather in games to win at checkers, he would teach me how to play so I could beat him. So from growing up with that all throughout your life, and then you get to this where it's like, yeah, you're probably not going to win a lot, but you're going to still have fun playing the game. And sometimes that just doesn't equate. Your mind doesn't equate leaving a game into having fun.
No, it doesn't. And like, it just doesn't. And it's more, it's obviously there's ridiculous amount of layers to the conversation because the way that the snap is, like, we're not even talking about decks at this point. It's just it's the actual underlying game. And whether that is a sustainable thing for a mass majority of people to want to keep engaging in is something that's going to be very interesting to watch and find out. Because it can be. I've played enough games at this point. Like, this game can be more exhausting and more taxing and more tilting than any other game ever made. It was meant to be designed to not do that.
It's fun. Yeah, you're right. I haven't played as many CCG games. I mean, Magic was primarily. Now I would get angry when I would lose a game in Magic, but again, most of the time, if you're losing a big game to someone you're playing for a little while. Sometimes you go 3 rounds with a player and you lose. If you're playing sealed deck, you're losing because of the cards you got in the deck. A lot of times are just not as good as theirs and stuff like that. But
your deck versus their deck wasn't as good. Like that happens in all card games. Like card games, it's not a level playing field. That's the problem with the snap. It's not. Unlike other card games, you are raising the stakes, but one of you generally has an inherent advantage over the other one, and they've made it quite clear, or they know. And there's been meta games in Marvel Snap, like with Thanos Lockjaw the first time around in particular, where one deck was so much better that you could literally snap turn 1 every single game if you saw that they weren't playing Thanos. Like that can't be sustained in a game which is based around basically betting. So the decks are. But you're right. You've got there's every card game there's an inherent disadvantage and advantage based on the decks, and the snaps are cute. It's an interesting mechanic, and it makes the game. It adds a layer to the game, which it needs. It needs the complications of it because it's not a complicated game. But it's hard when there is disadvantages to it. And,
there's always going to be. There's always going to be something. Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's always going to be something coming. I just saw for the first time in my life, and this even goes back to when Magic was big and stuff like that. I just saw a commercial on TV, on television for a upcoming card game, and I was shocked. I'm like, whoa. And I'm sitting there watching, and like, what is this? And it caught my eye because it's a Star Wars property, and I'm also a Star Wars fan.
Oh, Star Wars Unlimited.
I saw a commercial for that, and I'm like, wow, they're advertising this on a TV commercial, which is not very heard of often. And I saw that coming. I'm like, okay. I don't know that I'd ever want to go back to a paper card game again, because it's just people think this is expensive. Buying boxes upon boxes of cards to try to get good ones is very expensive too. But man,
it is. Like, I literally. I'm fortunate that I'm not planning on being a serious Dragon Ball card game player, but I wanted to do it more for the experience of having the interaction of it. But that was expensive. Like, I spent more than I would have on some months on Snap, more than I would have on Snap buying into that recently.
No doubt.
But there's something which is. And we're fortunate as creators, as I interact with people all the time about Marvel Snap, so I get that out of Snap as well. A lot of people don't.
That's true.
And that's the thing which is missing about all online card games, which you can't be captured as well as a physical card game. So you physically go and you play against someone and you talk to them, and
that
at the end
true.
of the game you go, I had this, you had that, and you have that. That is something which is missing in Snap for lots of people. And we forget that as people in positions like ours where we do these sort of things.
That's true.
Every single
Yeah.
day I talk to somebody about Marvel Snap. So I get to have that experience out of it too, which keeps me playing more than some of us. Others won't get that, and they're going to get more. Yes, it's a missing link. And
yep. It's very true. Like I was saying, like, you know, when I'd play in those tournaments and I would lose, the next thing I would do is I'd go around with my binder and I'd trade people. I'd be like, oh, hey, let me see your binder. Okay, I'll look at yours. Let me see what you have, what I don't have. And I'd spend hours trading cards. So like you said, it's a personal interaction. And so at least you're not sitting there and you know, you lost your game and you walked out and you went home. But yeah, you're right. It is it's hard to get that face to face, you know, and I don't know. I just that's one of the things I like to do is I just like to try to be real with people, and just make sure that they know that they're not alone, because you know I openly admit to everyone I have not hit infinite, and you know I kind of want people to know that, because it's not. You know, I think when Nerdherder was on and put out a statistic about the amount of people that actually hit infinite every month, and I think it's good for people to know that, because a lot of people think that's kind of the be all and end all, and when you don't hit it, you feel bad. But you know, when you realize it's just a small percentage of people who ever do, maybe you're not going to feel so bad about it if you don't.
It shouldn't even be a goal though. Like you never want to set a goal of I need this number. I never have, and I'm a strong advocate not for doing that. And if you listen to like the really good players, people like Lamby and them, when they talk about the game, they're not talking about what rank they're at.
Yep.
The ones who talk about what rank they are generally lesser. Like I find they're lesser players. Like the players who are best are better at. They stop and think about what they could have done differently at the end of games, whether they were in control of it or not. They try and work out whether it was just a bad beat and if they should have just seen what they should have left. Like that's the sort of thing that I try to do and focus on how I improve. So I know where my issues are. Like I can overestimate my own hand sometimes. So I try to work on that. Try and work on how I'm putting pressure on people. Whether I should, like, there's things that I try to work on, and my goal is to get better at. And when the new ladder came out, my immediate goal was how do I get better at dealing with the fact that people are snapping me? Suddenly I'm getting snapped on every second game, but people are like, what is this? So you set yourself goals around how you're playing instead. I don't necessarily go for that. Some people, it might be you need to set a time limit when you're going to stop, but more like, how are you playing the game? Like, how are you making your decisions? Is better goals than whether I hit infinite or not. Because infinite will come. Anyone who wants to hit infinite snap, you just need to play more time. You need to play more. So, guarantee infinite snap. Like one thing I'll say, counter to everything I've just said, really is why I don't actually think infinite in snap is actually super hard. You can overcome where you're at with time. And if you don't have time, it's better just to focus on being better at the game and learning how to play the game better, and just having fun that way is definitely better.
100%. Love it. Well, listen, sir, it has been awesome. I know I kept you longer than I had planned on, but I appreciate you being here. Tell everybody where they could find you and what you're doing next for your articles and stuff like that. Let everybody know. I know you're on Twitter, but let everybody know where they could find you.
Twitter, safetyblade_HS. But if you look safetyblade, it just shows up. I stream on Twitch. I try to stream 2 to 3 times a week. Last few weeks have been a bit quieter because I didn't enjoy playing Snap. But I do stream quite regularly, but it's a bit scattered. But follow me there and come hang out. I like to think we have a great time there. Tend to be very real conversations and a lot of great people who hang out. So come hang out there. But Twitter is my main place if you actually want to interact with me, or you can come join my Discord, which is just a place where we try to just have fun. But it's not like other Discords where it's all about how you get better at the game. It's try to be fun place. I'm sure it comes across from someone who constantly grinding himself into the ground trying to be better at this game, but I like to have fun. So they're the places you can interact with me. Snap Zone, I will continue to be writing about the new card every week. And tier lists, hoping to write some stuff for .gg soon in some more variety things too, though. So
nice. Cool.
Follow me on Twitter, you'll find out when I do that. I'm very excited about some of the ideas that might come out of that. And yeah, just what I'm trying to do at the moment is actually play Snap less and expand and enjoy it more. It actually is what I'm, so that'll be the lesson I'll leave it on. If you're not enjoying it, play it a bit less, and try not to take it too seriously, people. It's all fun.
Agreed. Hey, listen, I'm old. I like those old sayings, since sometimes less is more. There's a saying, that very old saying. I agree. Instead of getting angry and upset, just walk away and do something else that you enjoy. Have fun with something else, and then come back to it at a later time. Pick it back up again or something like that. But yeah, I love that. I get it. Yeah, 100%. All right, sir. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Snap Decisions. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Make sure that you sub to the channel. Make sure you drop a like on the video. Leave me some comments as well. I answer everyone. And also, for those of you that are going to listen to it on audio, I appreciate all of you that do. I will be putting this out on audio as well. So have a great rest of your week, guys, and an end to this season. I hope you did meet whatever goals you had and you had fun doing it. And hopefully I will see you all in the next one. Have a great one, guys. Stay safe. Please be kind to one another. And I'll talk to you all on the next episode. Have a good one, guys.